Tonight, the mounting toll of buildings obliterated by ferocious wildfires in BC. "200 structures lost or damaged.
It's a lot of unknown. It's stressful.
The anguish and frustration on the ground. Children trapped in a cable car dangling in the air. The harrowing rescue in Pakistan. Plus, shoppers shaken by the sound of gunfire. A frantic scramble after a shootout inside Canada's biggest shopping mall.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. 27,000 people remain under evacuation order in British Columbia. But as of midnight, the province is easing a travel ban to several communities in the southern interior, including Penticton, Vernon, Kamloops, and Kelowna. But the restrictions have not been lifted in West Kelowna, where billowing smoke is now part of the charred landscape. These just some of the 200 structures that have burned to the ground. And dramatic new video has emerged from 3.5 hours northwest of there near Lillooet. A swirling vortex of flames called a fire whirl or firenado as crews responded last week. CTV's Vanessa Lee is in West Kelowna tonight on the front lines of the firefight.
Fire crews are back in the air in the Shuswap region, where a mega fire is still burning out of control and has already destroyed swaths of communities. Today, BC Premier David Eby tried to comfort those who have lost everything.
Inform some of our band members that they don't have a home to go to.
Frustration is boiling over in some evacuated communities, where people say there simply aren't enough resources and are refusing to sit back while flames creep dangerously close to their properties, including Jason Warkentin in Lee Creek, who scrambled to save the home he built with his own hands.
We had a plan and lots of protection, and so it wasn't a hard decision to stay for me.
When we were here that night, it was popping and blowing up like we were Beirut. Just all you could hear was explosions.
Retired firefighter Brad Davies was across the lake when he saw a frantic post from his friend. Not even an evacuation order was going to get in the way of helping him.
It's unfortunate, but if helping my best friend is against the law, I'm probably going to have to consider what the repercussions from breaking that law is, because I'm still going to help my friend. And I think that there needs to be better leadership in organizing all these compassionate people that want to volunteer their skill sets, their time, their resources, and get them in there.
With wildfires getting more frequent and intense, there is a desperate plea not just for more resources, but to empower people who simply want to help.
I know for a fact that we saved one house where the flames were licking the deck at 2 a.m. on Saturday morning after the firestorm.
A risk authorities are urging people not to take.
It's to save your life. And it's to save the lives of first responders too, so that they don't have to go back in and rescue people from the jaws of the fire.
Officials are also reminding tourists to stay away from the Lake Country and Shuswap areas, adding non-essential travel to West Kelowna is still not allowed. Omar.
So much devastation. All right, Vanessa, thank you. And as firefighters work around the clock, many are noticing their hard work indirectly. This is how people are checking the status of their homes from their doorbell cameras, and it isn't going unnoticed.
Often you've talked back to us through your doorbell cams and told us that we're doing a good job, and that's new for us, but we appreciate that.
And today, after being forced to flee, some homeowners finally got a sense of the destruction. CTV's Alyssa Thibault with their return.
With smoke finally lifting, the true scale of destruction can be seen for the first time. In West Kelowna and along Okanagan Lake, home after home reduced to rubble by fire. Others seemingly untouched.
Well, we haven't even taken it all in yet, actually, because we just got home.
Ron Walkerton and his wife watched from their living room as the McDougall Creek wildfire burned. Hours later, they were evacuated. They returned home this morning after the evacuation order was lifted and found large pieces of embers around their home.
I think we got lucky. We definitely want to thank all the firefighters. I know there's lots of people that have lost their homes there, which is really sad.
About 90 homes in West Kelowna and West Bank First Nation have been burned, 100 more damaged further north, and another 6 homes lost across Okanagan Lake. The damage is significant, but there is some good news.
To the best of our knowledge at this time, there has been no loss of life and there are no missing persons outstanding from the fire.
Officials say it's still too dangerous for many people to come home, and assessment crews are still working. This couple doesn't know yet if their home is okay.
It's a lot of unknown. It's stressful.
And they've been through this before, losing their home in Fort McMurray, then rebuilding their lives in BC.
As of right now, I have what is important for me, my family, and we are safe. So as soon as we are safe, anything else can be replaceable.
It's now been 4 days since flames roared through this community. And for the thousands of people still out of their homes, the wait is unending.
I know lots of you are tired. You're tired of being out of your homes. You're tired of this situation that we're in, but we're not giving up.
More evacuation orders could be lifted as early as tonight, with crews making final assessments in some neighbourhoods. But for the areas hardest hit, well, this story is far from over. Alyssa Tebow, CTV News, Kelowna.
The Northwest Territories and the federal government are discussing ways to safely bring evacuees back home, but they'll have to wait longer.
There are 2 parts to the return plan. 1 is fire safety, and 2 is ensuring essential services are back up and operational. Unfortunately, for now, it's not safe to return.
Hot and dry conditions are making the firefight harder. Roughly 68% of the territory's population has been evacuated. And evacuees from those wildfires found themselves caught up in another frightening situation in Edmonton. They were inside the country's largest shopping center when it was suddenly locked down because of a shooting. CTV's Nicole Weisberg reports.
Recently evacuated from the community of Hay River, Taylor Price and her family were trying to decompress Monday night by going for dinner and shopping at West Edmonton Mall.
And then when we were shopping, we heard an alarm. And we didn't really know what it was at first. We thought maybe there was a shoplifter.
The alarm that rang out over the mall's PA system told shoppers to shelter in place. People were seen running to safety into any shop with the doors open, while the police tactical team swept the mall. The Price family went into a Foot Locker store. Staff brought them into a back room where they stayed about 2 hours.
We heard quite a few different things. We heard there was 2 dead bodies in the theater. Then we heard there was another dead body outside of Simon's. I never thought I'd have to experience something like that.
As the incident unfolded, police warned about misinformation being posted online. When the lockdown was lifted, just before 10 p.m., police confirmed 3 men were seriously injured in a shooting. They believe it was targeted, involving 2 groups outside.
2 of the males collapsed on the pavement with serious injuries, and the 2 others fled into the mall.
Police found a handgun in the mall. The men injured went to hospital. Another that was shot at hasn't been found. And the people who fired at them from a white SUV remain at large.
We are incredibly lucky that nobody lost their lives yesterday, that no innocent people were injured.
Not even a year ago, we had a flood, and then there was the fire. 2 times we had to be evacuated because of a fire. And now there's this, so what's going to be the next thing?
The mall was back open today, and officials say they'll continue working with police to ensure the highest degree of safety for their patrons. Nicole Weisberg, CTV News, Edmonton.
Firefighters in northeastern Greece discovered the bodies of 18 people near a shack in an area destroyed by a massive wildfire, and there's speculation the victims may have been migrants. In the port town of Alexandroupolis, more than 60 patients from a hospital were evacuated to a ferry today. Hundreds of firefighters have been battling to contain a nearby fire that started Saturday. In Pakistan, a group of students had a terrifying close call. They were using a cable car that connects to another village where their school is located when the cables snapped. turning a 4-minute journey into an hours-long mid-air rescue mission. Here's CTV's John Venavelli-Rao.
The harrowing scene shortly after the accident shows the cable car on an angle precariously dangling from a single wire, stuck halfway across a ravine, and trapped inside 6 children and 2 adults who use the lift daily to get to a school in a mountainous region with few roads. The race to rescue them happening in an area north of Islamabad, the children ranging in age from 11 to 15. The car essentially hanging by a thread 300 meters up after a cable snapped. Relatives and people on the ground watching and praying as Pakistan's military early on sent helicopters. In a daring move, a commando tried to rappel to the car, but some worried the chopper's downwash could destabilize it and break the remaining cable, and the first attempts were aborted. Across Pakistan, people were transfixed by the rescue efforts, which were also hampered by strong winds. Eventually, a harness was lowered to a passenger, who then stepped out of the car and was lifted to safety, to the cheers of those watching. But as darkness approached, the choppers were called off. Rescuers then deployed a makeshift chairlift, and showing incredible bravery, they managed to create a zip line. The passengers were then pulled to safety. For some, nearly 16 hours after their ordeal began.
When the helicopter operation could not go on in the dark, I think the rescuers made this brave decision because they didn't want the kids to be waiting all night and the parents to be suffering from anxiety.
In rural regions of Pakistan, cable cars are common, and tonight many leaders there are calling for new inspections of them. John Venavelli-Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
A political scandal over developing protected land has led to a sudden resignation tonight in Ontario. Ryan Amato has stepped down from his role as Chief of Staff to the Housing Minister after a report found developers with access to Amato wound up with 92% of the land removed from the protected Greenbelt. The opposition is also calling on Housing Minister Steve Clark to resign. Housing has been a key issue at the federal cabinet retreat in Charlottetown, and today the new immigration minister responded to an idea floated by the new housing minister about capping the number of international students to ease the crunch.
We have to address this in a smart way. It includes potentially looking at a cap, but if we're only looking at a cap, we're only addressing a partial part of that problem and the ecosystem that it's created.
It's a move that could impact Canadian universities and colleges who rely on high international tuition fees to help pay the bills. And joining us now is CTV's chief political correspondent, Vashi Kapelos. Vashi, we've heard a lot about housing being a priority at this cabinet retreat, but this isn't the first time the Liberals have made this a key issue. There was a national housing strategy back in 2017. Then, 2 years later, legislation to designate housing as a human right, and yet it still remains a crisis in this country. So specifically, what new tools are the Liberals looking at?
Yeah, they've made some progress, but not nearly enough to meet the moment, right? The CMHC says 5.8 million new homes have to be created by 2030 in order to restore affordability in this country. Today, cabinet ministers heard from a slew of experts, many of whom I spoke to. They told me that they told cabinet it is possible to accomplish that, but it will require a whole new set of tools, as you alluded to there, including, for example, waiving GST and HST on rental property building, clearing up a backlog that's a year long at the CMHC for apartment building, things of that nature. So not a lot of extra money, but a lot of new ideas were put on the table.
Another big issue at this retreat, Vashi, $15 billion in spending cuts. The new Treasury Board President Anita Anand has ordered ministers to make. What's been the reaction to that, and what social programs could take a hit?
Well, we don't really know yet what they're going to target. It's going to happen over the next 5 years. What we did learn today from Minister Anand was what she won't target. Services for First Nations, she said, won't be touched by those cuts, as well as services for deployed armed forces members. It's key to remember some extra context here, Omar, that of course the feds have been under a lot of pressure to spend more on defense. So cuts there at this time probably would not go over too well. Omar?
All right, Vashi, thank you for this tonight. And in the West, RCMP in Prince George are investigating the cause of a terrifying explosion they are calling suspicious. It sent 3 people to hospital. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Melanie Nagy on the chaos.
in the middle of a northern BC city. A shocking explosion shattered the early morning silence, sending a column of choking black smoke into the air.
At 7 o'clock this morning, most of Prince George felt the shockwave from a large explosion that occurred right in the heart of our downtown core.
Video posted to social media shows people stumbling out of a flattened building moments after the blast.
It was a restaurant. It has been closed for maybe a decade, so it's been a while since that building has been used.
In the aftermath, the local hospital prepared for a code orange, meaning staff were ready for mass casualties. But in the end, only 3 people were in need of treatment.
I can confirm that at least one of those 3 has injuries that would be considered serious in nature.
The strength of the explosion was reportedly felt by people living and working as far as 5 kilometers away.
Some of the things fell off those shelves in the shaking.
Catherine Sonby runs a nearby donut shop that was jolted by the blast.
We definitely felt the building shake, but I don't think we were quite knocked off of our feet, but we were definitely unsteady.
RCMP are now investigating and combing through video footage in search of clues as to the cause of the explosion. Melanie Nagy, CTV News, Vancouver.
Coming up.
I've heard loud and clear from parents that are concerned.
Needing the parental okay for a contentious change, plus a tasteful tribute on the highs and lows of Ben's Chili Bowl. Saskatchewan announced a shift today on sex education and the use of pronouns in schools. The move requires students under 16 to get their parents' permission. It's the kind of policy that has already been met with intense opposition in another province. Here's CTV's Jill Mackishon.
As Saskatchewan students get ready to start a new school year, changes.
I've heard loud and clear from parents that are concerned
about how their children are identifying in school, says the education minister. Now, a province-wide policy change means schools must seek parental consent when a student under 16 wants to change their names or pronouns.
I think the concern and the complaints have been, why are there policies in place that essentially take me out of the picture when it comes to something as critical and as significant in my child's life?
The Saskatchewan Teachers Federation is calling on the government to reverse this policy. And from Saskatchewan's largest labor union, outing children as part of a political gamble is violent and despicable. In New Brunswick, students staged a walkout in spring after similar changes were introduced. And in Manitoba, with a looming election, education policy changes have become a progressive conservative campaign promise.
It's time for those parental rights to be updated.
We should be beyond these conversations in Canada. It's not up for debate anymore.
Yet advocates expect more provinces to follow suit, making similar changes in the name of parental rights, with children's well-being, they say, hanging in the balance.
In an environment in a home that is not safe, it's not inclusive, a child can pick up on that very, very quickly and will not feel safe to let their parents know who they really are.
There is pushback in New Brunswick. The education policy is being challenged on whether it violates the Provincial Human Rights Act. And tonight, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association is looking at legal options concerning the changes in Saskatchewan. Jill Mackishon, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Coming up, good news after bad. A family told by police their grandson was killed, only to find out he's alive and well. Imagine being told a family member was murdered, only to find out he is alive.
I was numb when they told us. I mean, you sit there and you don't even say a word.
Police told Winnipeg's Judy Pachenko and her partner that their grandson Peter was identified as a homicide victim through dental records back in April. They had their doubts all along after receiving a text message from him a week after they were told he was supposedly killed.
I kept saying, "Are you sure?" And they're saying, "Yes, we're 99.9% sure this is Peter."
Days later, Peter actually showed up at his father's doorstep, alive and well. Winnipeg police have since identified the person they claim is the actual victim. There's dramatic video tonight of a rough landing for an Alaska Airlines plane during Tropical Storm Hillary. Sparks flew as the plane's left wing hit the tarmac in Orange County, California on Sunday. The airline said there was an issue with the landing gear. Fortunately, none of the 112 passengers and crew was injured. There was an extremely rare sight at a Tennessee zoo, a baby giraffe that doesn't actually look like one. The calf was born a few weeks ago without the typical pattern of patches. The zoo believes she is the only one of her kind. After the break, unity in Washington, at least when it comes to an American culinary institution with an amazing past. They say there's no such thing as a free lunch, but that wasn't the case today at a unique American restaurant with ties to celebrities, presidents, and the civil rights movement. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin on the story behind a legendary chili spot.
There was dancing in the streets, a block party birthday bash in front of Ben's Chili Bowl, a Washington landmark celebrating 65 years with free meals.
You come to Ben's to get it right. Regular and spicy, get your chili cheese fries, let the temperature rise.
Their signature dish, a DC delicacy known as the half smoke, beef and pork sausage.
With chili and raw onions and mustard, it is delicious.
What's that taste like?
It's so good. It's worth the wait.
People lining up for hours for that chili top dog and to relish the restaurant's role in America's civil rights movement.
When you see me standing here 2 hours, 2-3 hours, yes it is. It's worth the wait for me. It's history.
In the 60s, the diner became a hub for leaders like Martin Luther King, whose march on Washington for voting rights was planned right here.
After he brought 250,000 people here to protest, 1964, the year after, we passed the Civil Rights Bill. So I think we're making great progress, right? 3, 2, 1.
Virginia Alley, who started the restaurant with her late husband Ben, remembers it well. Then there was the time when a young president made the diner his first stop.
It was something that I didn't believe could happen. So we partied all night out there in that street when he won.
Celebrities, politicians, musicians, the walls are lined with famous faces. This family-owned restaurant has weathered the pandemic, segregation, and the '68 riots. After King's assassination, Ben's was the only place open. Everything else was gone.
Everything got rebuilt, but this was the only thing that stood up. So, yeah, definitely. The legacy.
For decades, the diner has persevered. The secret sauce, says Virginia,
that chili is made with a lot of love. Lots of love.
Dishing up a whole lot of that to a community that couldn't be prouder. Joy Malbin, CTV News, Washington.
What a story. And that's a snapshot of this Tuesday. I'll be back with you on Labor Day. Anne-Marie Medawake will be here tomorrow. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching and good night.